Welcome to Your Vibrant Life podcast with me, Alison Stockton, the founder of Vibrant Balanced Health, health and wellness expert, and author of best-selling book, The Woman I Am Becoming. Thank you so much for joining on this podcast, where we will be sharing every week top tips, tricks, and inspiration of how you too can live your most vibrant life. Stepping into areas of personal development, self-love, self-appreciation, spirituality, and becoming the best version of yourself and living your most vibrant life. We're going to share with you steps and advice on health, spirituality, self-love, self-care, self-worth, and how to grow into the most incredible woman that you've always desired to be. This is a space for women to learn, to grow, and to live their healthiest, happiest life with women who are here ready to support you. We are so happy to welcome you here. And if you feel so called to, please do leave a comment at the end of the show to let us know that you've enjoyed it. Share it with a friend or two and inspire somebody today to live their best life and to learn to love the life that they live. We are so grateful for you being here, and we wish you the most incredible journey into living your most vibrant life. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Your Vibrant Life. I have the most incredible and inspirational woman on for you today. Her name is Dani Wallace. She's a northern lass from the UK, and she has been in the past, and still is actually, a singer, presenter, speaker, and she is the fearless leader and founder of I Am the Queen Bee movement, helping women across the world to show up, wise up, and rise up so that they can take life by the big old lady balls and step up into their birthright of success. Dani, I am so honored that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me, Alison. I'm absolutely made up.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. You have such a big story to share. And the reason you're sharing it is to help women, as you say. It's the Queen Bee movement, helping women across the world to show up, wise up, and rise up. So that's what you're doing now. How did this all start?
So the Queen Bee movement is a relatively new movement. It's something that's been in the back of my mind for a long, long time. So my story really starts in the performance space, in the entertainment space. Then it moves through into the corporate sector and then into self-employment. And during this time, I learned loads, and I went through a lot at the same time. And once I got to a point in my own business where I kind of hit a glass ceiling, I wanted to do something that was helpful to people, that was inspiring to people, particularly women in business. So yeah, it came from wanting to help and try and help as many people as I can in as exciting a way as possible.
Amazing. And tell me about why it's Queen Bee. What is the story behind being a Queen Bee?
So I was watching the film Bee Movie with my kids.
I've never seen this movie. I'm going to have to watch it now.
It's incredible. It's so good. It's one of those that they've got analogies for business and life in there. If you kind of watch along, it's it's kind of really fably. It's fab. I'd been through quite a tough time, and I was at the end of all that, and I was ready to do something different, but I wasn't sure how. I wasn't sure what exactly. I knew I wanted to be helpful. I knew that I wanted to certainly be helping women in business, but I didn't know how. And it's funny where inspiration comes from. So I'm watching this film, and there's a quote right at the beginning where the narrator says, words to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, words to the effect of, aerodynamically, bees should not fly. Their body is too small to get off the ground. Their body's too fat and their wings are too small. The bee, however, doesn't care what humans think is impossible, and they fly anyway. And I'm sat there with my kids thinking, that's it. That's it. Whatever people have been through, they get to choose to fly anyway. If they surround themselves with the right people, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a movement that is going to help people to fly anyway. So that's where it all kind of started.
Amazing. And it is right. It's fight or flight, isn't it? It's that's our reptilian brain. That's what we were kind of predisposed to, even though the reptilian brain is shrinking. It is, do we stay, do we fight, or do we run away from it all? So you said that your journey to get to where you are right now was quite difficult. So what you have created, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, is like a phenomenal business blueprint and encouraging other women to go out there and be successful as well. But it didn't really start out the best way for you. You were a singer, as we said, from a very early age, and you've traveled the world with that, which is incredible. So which kind of countries have you been to that have been your favorite places?
Oh, so many places. I grew up relatively poor, and the only way that I was ever going to travel when I was younger was by working. So when I was 17, I may have fibbed about my age at the time. It was a long time ago. I went out and became a member of different animation teams and show teams in different hotels across the world. So I worked in Mallorca, I worked in Crete, Zakynthos, I worked in France, I worked in Finland, like 2 hours inside of the Arctic Circle in Lapland. That was amazing.
Wow.
When you go outside and see the Northern Lights just every day, like it's just a happening.
I didn't think they had like on-camp entertainers there. I thought it was like you just go do tourist things and then leave.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, really. So what I did is I did entertainment for people that was going out, like on Santa trips.
Yes.
But I did a lot of work with kids that were like last wish kids that had been funded to go over there. So I would do their entertainment and head up their tours for them. And it was very magical. It was beautiful. I lived in Nashville in Tennessee for a little while, did some work over there. So it's been very varied. I think my favourite place, it might sound quite boring, but it was Lanzarote. I was in Lanzarote for about 12 months, and that kind of became my island home.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound boring at all. And do you go back there often? Have you been back to many of the places you've worked at?
I went back to Lanzarote for my honeymoon. I went on honeymoon. I got married 3 years ago. I went on honeymoon with my kids, and it was always my one of my goals was to take my children, when I was able, back to some of the places where I'd worked. Yeah. So it was really lovely to take my girls back to Lanzarote and go and kind of show them where I used to live, and because the mummy that they knew, or that they know, doesn't do all of that traveling. He likes to travel, but we hadn't really had that opportunity, so they couldn't really place me in all these different countries, all these different places. So it was really lovely on my honeymoon. It was like a bit of a full circle thing to be able to go and show the kids where I'd worked.
It's funny when you say my honeymoon, but the kids were with me. We were the same. We were the same. Kids were with us when they had a honeymoon. So you were 17 when you started, told a little white fib. And then what point did you think, you know what, I've had enough of this. I need to kind of settle after you did your year in Lanzarote?
It was funny. A lot of my family, because of where we come from, a lot of my family were very much like, you need to come home and get a proper job now. Because what I do, even though I was earning, what I was doing wasn't a proper job. I was in entertainment, and nobody in the communities that I grew up with, that's not what we did. We got a proper job. So, and my grandma wasn't very well at the time. And I'd come back and I'd just done a little bit of time in between contracts being a blue coat at Pontins. For those that know, that's like a caravan type holiday, chalet type holiday in the UK. And I'd just done a stint there, just up the road, and I'd met my then partner, and we decided that, now is the time to put down some roots. So, because really the idea is that you go to work, you get married, you have kids, you have a mortgage, you do all of that. So I felt like, all right, okay, so I'm 22, 23 now, that's what I should do. That's what I've got to do now. That's apparently the box that I've got to tick. So we did, and we came back to Preston, the two of us, and we had Poppy, my first daughter, and I got a job within a global company that was in massive growth at the time. So I came back and I came to work in a contact centre, but very, very quickly they talent managed me through their talent processing system. So I ended up working within HR in the senior leadership circles doing senior leadership training. So I moved from
very different. Yeah.
Very different. Although I was still performing. So I was still, stood up in front of groups of people and I was training. So I was performing, but in a different way. So I was still kind of scratching the performer itch in me.
And how did you feel being in that corporate position where you felt that was the right thing to do, having a house being the right thing to do, and then becoming pregnant?
So at the time, I didn't realize how unfulfilling that was until much later. Because I was in such a position where I was learning lots and I was having impact, and the job that I had was, in inverted commas, a very, very good job. The house that we had was okay. It was nice. The relationship I had was stable also, I thought. So when I was initially working in that space, say for the first 5 years, it was exciting. It felt impactful. I was learning. I've always been, intelligent. I've always had a thirst for learning. I didn't go to university. So it was kind of my university years almost.
So you were trained through that job as a leadership coach as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, and that was an opportunity that, again, people like me from where I came from weren't really offered. You would have to go to university to go and do that, or you would have to pay for those appropriate courses. But what that company did for me was develop me through that. So I had access to lots and lots of learning in that time that was, I didn't realize how blessed I was to have access to it. I thought that's just what happened.
Wow. So what kind of things did you have access to that was helping you in your job and helping you personally?
So it was things like coaching training, NLP, strengths finding, strengths-based leadership skills, insights, personality profiling, things like MBTI, the Myers-Briggs stuff, all of that. I was developed in when I was in the corporate space, and I was really blessed to have been able to go through that. And it was fine to a point because I was helping people, which is nice. That kind of fills up a cup of mine. Well,
I guess it's like the entertainment. You do the entertainment so you can light people up, so that they're having a really nice experience, and you're giving that entertainment to them. So it's a bit of a balance, but
100%. It was like a happy medium.
Yeah. How did you manage that? The house, the husband. How was that for you? Kind of working through all of those aspects.
Well, it wasn't quite husband.
Okay.
So what happened was I was working in that space for a couple of years. I was 3 months pregnant with my daughter, Poppy, my eldest. We bought the house, and then we just sent out the invites to our wedding. And a couple of weeks later, he just woke up one morning and said, "I don't want this anymore." And he left, which was... It was quite a trying time. So it wasn't, the experience that I had wasn't really atypical. So what I ended up doing is looking after my job and, really trying to do the best that I could. But I was quite vulnerable at home, and that left things being quite difficult.
Yeah, a single mom, literally in the house on your own and trying to balance work and everything else. So, but you managed to do it. What about the singing when you've got a tiny baby at home? How did you manage that?
I didn't sing at all. I had to stop completely because of the nature of singing and performance. That happens a lot in the evening. And because I was working full time, and I was in that real corporate field, so I was working, they say it's a 40-hour week, but it's never a 40-hour week, is it? It's 60, 70, 80-hour week. It would start at 7:30 in the morning and finish at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And sometimes it was up and down the country. It was very, very involved. So I had to stop singing completely, and I did for a number of years.
But how did you manage the baby as well with this very intense corporate role? You're a single mom, and you want to help so many other people in the corporate world that you were in. How were you looking after yourself, and how were you looking after that baby? Who helped you?
At the time, I wasn't very kind to myself at all. In fact, because I was very, very vulnerable. So where the baby was concerned, she went to nursery from as young as she was able. So she was in, paid for childcare whilst I was at work. And then when I was up and down the country, my mum would sometimes chip in, or my sister, but it was very, very difficult. And like I said, at that time, my almost husband had just left. I was very vulnerable, and very quickly I got into a new relationship where that guy knew that I was quite vulnerable and preyed on the fact. So very quickly at home, things took a bit of even more of a nasty turn. That relationship was quite abusive. And I got pregnant very quickly. So there was a domestic violence, domestic abuse situation that was happening at home. So I was not making very good choices all over the place at the time.
I guess you hadn't even healed from the previous issues going on and that shock. And then you're into this something else, and then you've got somebody who's being violent and really kind of you as yourself. I guess you wanted to kind of shut down.
Absolutely. And things came to a head where the father of my second child, Daisy, was particularly violent one night and left me in a bit of a state, let's say. And I had to get an injunction. For our safety, for my safety. The kids were never involved. It was for my safety. And it was at that point, so during that time, I lost the house. I had to let the house go. And me and the kids ended up homeless. So we were battling through between us this undercurrent of terrible things that were happening at home whilst maintaining this job at work. And I was doing nothing.
You were still going to work?
I was still going to work. Yeah, work didn't know about this. So I'm sofa surfing with the kids, and if the kids were able to stay somewhere one night, or maybe have to sleep in the car. There was lots of.
And were they at school at this point? Had it got to that?
No,
point?
They were just at nursery. They were babies. They were 1 and 3 at the time. They were just toddlers. They were small.
Wow. So how did you actually keep sane? How did you preserve your own energy during this time, and for your own sanity, but also for the girls as well? When, there's kind of, you've lost your stability and gone to an unstable place, but you were still maintaining a job. You're still going to this corporate role.
Yeah, because of the way things were set up at the time, in terms of, help from the government and things like that, it was only beneficial for me to either stay at work or finish work completely, come out of work and lose the house and make myself even more vulnerable than I already was, which I wasn't prepared to do. And the real honest answer to this, Alison, is that I didn't manage. It got to a point where during that time where we were sofa surfing and what have you, things got so bad, and I tucked my kids in, about to leave. I had to leave that evening, tucked my kids into bed. We were staying, I think it was my mum's and my sister's one night, tucked them in, and really had that thought where I would probably be better if I wasn't around. That's where it got. I was tucking them in, I was kissing them. I didn't know if I was kissing them goodnight or goodbye. And I went out of that room and I sat in my car and I cried, and I thought, I've got to do something here. So I was, during this time, you say, how did I manage? I wasn't managing. I wasn't doing any. Yeah, I was surviving. And it was a constant stress and a constant pressure. And it was in that point, it was in that moment where I decided that it was, if I don't change now, because obviously I'm the key in this. It was me that was making the decisions. If I don't change the situation, then things are never going to change. And it was funny because when I was working, when I was at work, I was teaching people how to lead, how to be strong, how to show up as their best selves, how to do all these things. And I was never applying it to myself. And once I started to do that, things started to unfold and get better, because I started to take responsibility for my actions, for my health, for my finances, for my living situation. And I think that was the key. That was the turning point when I realized that it was on me. Because you get caught up like that, don't you? Like, you do. Life is happening to me. Oh God, things are terrible.
You go in victim mode, but you didn't ever go in victim mode, and you found that inner queen bee to make that decision. And I think for our listeners, who have possibly come through something similar, maybe not as extreme, there's always a question, well, how did you do that? How did you manage that? How did you? And I think as women, we are so resilient and we're such warriors that we drive through everything in protection of our kids, but we're protecting everybody else before we protect ourselves.
Yes, 100%. Absolutely. So when I started to take responsibility, one of the first things that I needed to do was start to really ask for help. And that was the start. It was to start surrounding myself with people that there was a lot of shame involved in what was happening to me at the time. You know, and there are services out there that help women like me that were in that situation, you know, where we're taking from food bank, not taking from food banks, but, you know, we were needing to utilize food banks or all of that. So actually asking for help was the start, and then starting to consume, instead of things like the news or television, so to speak, or all of that sort of stuff, I started to consume learning that was only going to help me. And that was again really pivotal. What I started to consume in my ears and in my brain was again really pivotal in terms of turning things around.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, you know, when you say you were homeless and then you were in the food banks, you were still having this well-paid job. But you were doing that so that you could sustain paying nursery fees as a single mom, so that your children didn't have to come out of what they knew for something that was normal for them through the daytime. Because otherwise, what would you do? Like you say, you would have had to give up work and then hopefully be supported by the government. And that wasn't the route that you wanted to do. But so turning off the news is a big thing because it fills us with negativity. Yes, sometimes we need to know what's going on in the world, but other times it can just consume us with unnecessary noise.
And that's what it is. It's noise. Even the whole, you know, the celeb thing, the distraction thing that here's what perfection looks like.
Oh, yeah.
You know, exposing yourself to that is only going to put you on the back foot with yourself, because what you're being shown in the media it's not real. So by consuming that sort of media all the time, you're only telling yourself that you're not enough. So I had to stop the noise in order to connect with myself again, to understand that, you know, what I've got to give has value, what I'm able to do has value. So what I was consuming that way in terms of in my brain was very, very key to making those changes.
A lot of self-development. So not only were you teaching this to other people, then you, as you say, you've had to start implementing that to yourself day by day. Now that's still really hard when you're living out of a car, going to work, performing as this leader, coach, whatever, superstar in a corporate world, and then thinking, where can I get my next shower? Or where am I going to do my washing? And how many days can I wear this suit or whatever before anybody notices? So you've got all of that to deal with. So, you know, how long were you living in the car and sofa surfing and just literally surviving?
All in, that real total survival situation was about 2.5 months. But when you're in that, it feels like a lifetime. When I reflect on it and I look at, you know, how short 2.5 months feels like now for me, you know, I'm living at 1,000,000 miles an hour still, but it's so much more positive what I'm doing. Back then, that 2.5 months felt like 2.5 years.
Not bad.
And the stress that you're under all the time, it was heavy. It was a very, very, very heavy burden to be bearing. And when you're carrying a load like that for that amount of time, it was really dark. So yeah, about 2.5 months, just shy of 3 months.
So you made this decision that this is not going to get the better of you. You dug into your own NLP, your self-development. And then how did you actually start to make things turn around for you?
So first of all, I had to get a roof over my head. So what I did was I started to access the services that were going to help me do that. So getting my finances in order. Now the house had gone, I was able to rent. And what happened was, it was kind of, some of these things have been a little bit, in my mind, a bit of divine intervention, where the universe has lined things up for me, in that a house came up that my sister's friend's mum and dad had bought, which was a bit of a fixer-upper in their eyes, but was perfectly fine for us to move into. And they'd said to us, look, come and move in. We won't charge you a deposit. Just look after it. Come and live here. You know, you've got somewhere to live. It was like,
that's amazing.
Okay. So then with the stability of having somewhere to live, I was then able to start putting things in order again. So getting my finances sorted, you know, where I needed to be able to access the right help from the government, and then be able to build things up. So so things kind of came full circle once I got the roof over my head. So it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You can only be in a position to grow when you feel safe, when you're fed, when you're watered. It's all of that. So that hierarchy, that very base level hierarchy needed to be looked after before anything else could happen.
Totally. So you're in the house, the kids are now in the home, they're, you know, things are kind of going back to normal. That's great. So what about you? What was your self-awareness like, self-confidence like? What about you? Where were you in all of this situation now that, you know, you'd made the decision to move forward, but what about your own sanity and well-being?
So once I'd had that darkest moment and I'd started to get the help when we were in the house, it was then that I could start getting excited again about moving onwards. But the funny thing is that my cup wasn't really being filled up in the role that I was doing anymore. So at the time I was managing a contact centre and also developing the mid-level management. And I was that exhausted by all of this going on that I just kind of stopped showing up in my heart. I just kind of stopped showing up. I didn't have the same respect for that corporate space anymore with me in it. So I found myself in a position where I lost the job. And that might sound, you know, God, all these terrible things have happened. But when I found out that that's what had happened, for the first time in a long time, I was excited, because it was only a few months earlier that I'd been saying to myself, look, Dani, you don't sing anymore.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, actually, had you gone back to singing at this point?
Yeah, no. And at that time, I'd met my now husband, and he'd said to me, Dani, why don't you sing now? You know, I'm here. We can manage the kids, and why don't you sing? And when I lost my job, it became this revelation that actually I'm able to do this now. This is going to be something I can do. So then I started singing. I got a small business loan. I got a PA. I got my car. And started.
Now, when you say PA, you were not talking about a personal assistant here. What we're talking about? Not at that point. Maybe now.
Now, yes. But not.
So what do you mean when you say PA? Is it like a sound system or something?
Yeah, sound system. So I needed speakers, mixing desk, microphone, because when you're a singer, it isn't as glamorous as what people think. Yeah, you've got a lot of driving and a lot of setting up and knocking down of your equipment. It's not just getting on stage and singing.
So you went and asked for a loan to just set up a singing business?
I did, yeah.
And they gave it to you?
Yeah, because the previous 3 months I could show them that I'd been earning a significant amount of money. So I had to move really quick.
Yeah. All right, amazing. So you did that and then set up the, what was it called? Well, what is it called? Because you still do it.
So at the time, yeah, at the time, so my maiden name was Gallagher. I used to go out as the family so I'd done some work with a self-employment mentor, and they'd they said, look, you need to think. It's like that film, You've Got to Have a Gimmick, you know? I think it's in Gypsy. And so I did the whole vintage thing. So I went out as the fabulous Miss G and went out and sang kind of vintage jazz, and then realised that, you know, I can hold a party and I can compare. And so that kind of evolved into what I do now, which is going out singing soul, Motown and jazz and being the life and soul of the party, or comparing big corporate events.
Amazing. That's so fantastic. But you don't just do that anymore, because the Queen Bee movement was born. So from all of this adversity, and where people literally could be listening going, Jesus, I'd have hit the bottle by now, and how would I have moved forwards from it? So I'm just going to ask you about that, because you did kind of hit the bottle a little bit in between all this time too, because there's so much going on.
Yeah. There was definitely a degree of self-medication during that time, just kind of coming through the other end of it. So bear in mind, you know, the things we spoke about, regardless of where I am now and the fact that I've totally moved on from it, it was traumatic. And what I would do is, you know,
You've been physically abused. You've not only been physically abused, it's the mental abuse as well that you're become so resilient to. You've gone into self-protection mode, not only for you, for your children. And, you know, there are all these traumas that sometimes if we don't address them, then they can manifest into something else. So, you know, for you moving forward so much was incredible. And like you say, just to self-medicate just a little bit, because otherwise the doctors would have you on heavy meds.
Yeah. And that was always the potential, you know, you know, I did try different medications during the time, but none of them really stuck. It turns out they were trying to treat a depression and not an anxiety. The anxiety would dress itself up as depression because I was so exhausted from feeling so anxious. And you can understand why, you know, that was my default setting, was to be on the back foot, you know, be worried. And I would get that exhausted, you know, that fatigue from having that adrenaline going on all the time. You know, it would affect my sleep. So I would get the kids to bed and I could kick in easily, you know, a bottle, 2 bottles of wine, and build up a resistance to that as well. So it wasn't that I was sitting indoors being fall down drunk. That's the scary thing, really, where you build up your toxicity resilience to a point where you can kick that amount of alcohol in and it not really have an impact other than to be living in a mild state of hangover the next day. You realise the reason why you feel so tired is because it's a hangover that you're experiencing.
And trying to function. And, you know, like you just said, without going too much into, you know, the science of it, you are completely, you're already in a sympathetic zone, but you're also then in a toxicity zone. So you've got toxic external from all the shit that's been going on. Then you're building that toxicity from the inside as well, you know, with no release system. So what kind of woke you up from that and thought, you know what, I've got to stop this drinking?
I had a conversation with somebody, a friend at the time, who she said, like, do you drink? We were just having a normal conversation. She was like, yeah, do you drink? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. We all have a glass of wine, don't we? Because it's the done thing, isn't it? Mummy needs a glass of wine or mummy needs a gin, all of that. And she was like, what do you drink? What's your poison? I said, I like a lovely red. I could like drink a bottle and a half, 2 bottles of red most nights. And she was like, how do you drink that much? And I was like, I didn't realise that was shocking. I didn't realise that was a shocking
every night, yeah.
And I didn't realise that was, it was only when I gave it some thought, because I weren't being conscious about it. I'd just pick up a couple of bottles of wine on the way home, you know, wherever, or nip out to the shop. So I decided to give myself a period of abstinence. So I had about 8 months, a couple of years back, where I just decided to stop drinking, just to see how it felt, just to work out who I was. Did I need it? Was it necessary? Could I only be fun with a drink? It was all of those questions I wanted to answer for myself. And found out that actually, no, I didn't need it. And, you know, it really helped me repair my relationship with alcohol.
And on a conscious level to make that decision, again, everything you've done so far has always been on a conscious level. So you knew all of this stuff subconsciously, but weren't able to tap into it until there's like, you know, there is a switch that gets clicked at a certain point in your life. So being able to make that conscious decision to move away from that was, you know, incredible, because you must have been losing energy as well. If you were living in that sympathetic state, drinking, numbing things out, knackered the next day, like you said, almost a hangover, a functional hangover the next day with the kids, and then your energy is just being zapped. And so, you know, to move forward from that is kind of, you know, remarkable. And to come out of those darkest moments, what was it? You have a saying, and I think it's incredible, when it's in the darkest moments. Oh,
the darkest moments are just before dawn.
That's the one. That's the one. I love that.
When things are the darkest of the dark, like a night time, but with and this was the understanding that everything is transient. Everything. Good times are transient, bad times are transient. You know, and we've got to go.
If you allow them to. If they're a transient, if you allow them to, because you can only come out of it when your mindset shifts and on a cellular level, when that moves through as well. So that, you know, everything that you've said is just so incredible that you are where you are right now, and your aspiration to be so inspirational to others from everything that you've been through. And, you know, we're only just kind of like touching the surface. We're not going really deep onto what everything has happened to you. And like you say, it's happened It happened to you so you can learn from it, because all of this trauma and this aggression and this, you already saw it from being a little girl. So I think that's important, that people know sometimes that when you address it, when it's already in your DNA, when it's in your genetics, that you've grown up with it, that when you're in that relationship yourself, or you encounter relationships like that, you almost think it's the normal thing to do.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's funny that when you choose your relationships, you choose them for a reason, whether you know what that reason is or not. And my view of the world, I mean, particularly the abusive relationship, I went to the man that was most like my father. That was my formative view. He was my normal.
Yeah.
So I did, when I met my now husband, who is stable and he's calm and he is, he doesn't even look at, not that he doesn't look at other women, but he's not, I know that I'm coming home to him. There's no fear with him. That was really, it was hard. I tell you what was hard, not to punish him for the mistakes of my past relationship.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one, Dani, to do, because a lot of women do, or, you're always living in that fear of, well, he's going to do it anyway, or, they've done it, it'll just happen again. So, as I said, you are choosing to live in a more conscious state, and choosing to live in a parasympathetic state as well, where you are acknowledging yourself, your self-awareness, your self-accountability, and your confidence. So, when you've been through all that as a kid and you are who you are now, you are an amazing woman who has such energy and such, knowledge, and is moving the needle forward so much for women empowerment. But what about when you were a kid? What was it like for you then, growing up?
So when I would always have been described as a confident child. But what it was there was more bravado, when actually I was really fearful. I wanted desperately for people to like me. So the confidence would be that I would be super excitable, and I would be loud. I would be the excitable kid at the party, or I would be you know what I mean, the excitable child at the party. I was that kid, never badly behaved. I was always, really, really well behaved, but I would have been described as a super confident kid. But actually, if I go back there, what I was doing is I was trying to get people to like me. It was coming from a place of lack of confidence, that bravado was coming from, and that spilled over. And it was only when I got to my 30s that stillness and that knowledge that actually I am enough, the dial on the confidence changes. It is no longer a front. It's no longer bravado. It is a natural confidence. It's much more calm confidence. But when I was little, it was just a desperate scrabble for people to like me.
And you just mentioned Maslow before. Would you say that you, obviously Maslow talks about self-actualization, and do you say that you're in that self-actualization now, where you have all these abilities, but now you can actually perform them knowingly and confidently, and you are who you are supposed to be right now in this very present moment in time?
Absolutely. For me, that's the self-awareness, the learning about yourself. Is the key to being able to be in that sort of self-actualized spot.
Why do you think so many women don't step into that empowered state?
Because we're not encouraged
rather than later.
We're not encouraged to be. If you think about what our kids are exposed to from a young age now, I've got a 9-year-old who has exposure to social media. She doesn't have any social media accounts, but her older sibling and her cousins do. What they see on the television is not, although there is a bit of a shift happening right now with this whole neo-feminism movement that I am totally digging. But what our kids are consuming isn't. We're not encouraged to. There is still a lot of gender differences, whether we like it or not. So we are still in that really archaic role of, we've got to be mum, we've got to be wife, we've got to be thin, we've got to be this, we've got to be that, we've got to be the other. We've got to have a career, we've got to wear all these hats. And I think it's really difficult for us, we're so busy juggling that we can't just put the balls down for a second and have a look at ourselves and choose. You know, some women don't want to be mums. Some women don't want a career, you know, and we are being told and bombarded with this information all the time that actually we've got to want all of these things, but we're not allowed all of these things. And that is so, so difficult. And I think that, you know, part of the whole Queen Bee movement is the fact that you've got autonomy here. You've got autonomy. You are allowed to choose where you put your energies. In fact, you need to take some space for yourself to reflect on what it is you want and build from there. Because when you're heart-led, that's when the exciting stuff happens.
Totally. And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? It's, you've got to, when you say, what I say to women or to my clients, you've got to love yourself more. Sometimes that can be a real trigger word, love myself more. What does that mean? So when I change that around and say, you've got to start to listen to yourself more. You've got to start to understand yourself more. You've got to be who you are meant to be and not be like anybody else, because you are unique. You know, your DNA is just you. And we are exposed to so much social images and portrayal of how a life should be. And I think it very much is, like you said, if you don't want to have kids, that's your choice. You shouldn't be judged, condemned, or questioned about it. Yeah. And if you do change your mind, then that is your prerogative completely.
And that's cool too. Yeah, absolutely.
You have the right to change. Like your family, you know, I think when you said you had to come back and get a job because that was the done thing to do. So you followed that format of the industrial mindset and you knew that you've evolved from it. Now you might get some contention from your family. I'm not sure. They might kind of look at, what is it actually that you do? You know?
Yeah, I get a lot of that.
What is it you're doing? But I think that's very much in the entrepreneurial world now, that we're creating things that, and this is the way that the world is going, very much closing the doors on the industrial era and very much opening up into the entrepreneurial world where anything becomes possible, because anything is possible if you really dig deep enough and make it happen. You know, and to move forward and to empower people. And, you know, your past does not define you.
No.
You have utilized that as lessons all the way through to create this amazing, from a movie.
Watching a film one day.
Inspired. Was it Disney?
I don't think it's a Disney film. I can't remember. I think you might have DreamWorks.
But being inspired by the words and being able to converse that into your dreams and desires to helping other women. So, you know, I just want to get you back now into your passion, your purpose, where you're at, and just share with me a little bit more about, because you did some research on what a bee actually does, right? Oh,
honestly, it's so interesting. Like, bees have always been my favourite animal. I just love a big fat bumblebee bee. But so like, we're watching a bee movie and I'm in my glory listening to this, you know, watching this film. But the more that I looked at bees particularly, the more I realised how many analogies you can use in business and life, using the behaviour of bees. So, for example, they do this great thing, Alison, called a waggle dance, right?
What? So, a waggle dance? Is that like a tribal thing?
Oh, it's amazing. Like, check this out. They go, so the worker bees go flying out to, you know, different flowers, different flora and what have you. And when they find the patch of flowers that's got the nectar and the pollen, what they do is they then go back to the hive and they do this waggle dance. They do a dance and show the other bees.
I can see Dani doing this. When you're listening to this, she's doing the wiggle. She's doing the wiggle. Let me just get this vision in your head. She's a bee doing a wiggle.
So they do this waggle dance, and then they're telling the other bees, here is where the good stuff is. Come on over here, because this is going to benefit everybody. And I thought that was so powerful, because what we are or have been encouraged to do in the past is through the scarcity mindset is find the good stuff, but then keep it to yourself.
So true.
Whereas there is so much space. There's 7.5 billion people in the world. So, you know, you can go out and tell other people where the good stuff is. You can share the good stuff.
Yeah.
So they do this waggle dance, and they do this other awesome
thing.
Sorry,
I said wiggle. I said wiggle. A waggle.
It's a waggle dance.
She's doing a waggle. She's doing it again now. She can't do it without moving her hands and doing it.
I can't help it.
What else do they do?
So they do. So the female bees in a hive, when they're creating new sections of hive, they do something. It's awesome. It's called festooning.
Wow.
And what the bees do is they link arms and show the other bees where to build to.
Okay, can you factually be correct on this? Because I'm interested. Is it arms or is it wings? How do they link?
They link legs. They link legs.
Wings, arms, whatever it is. Okay, they actually physically link.
Yeah, they link arms together. And that, in my mind, is exactly what we should be doing as entrepreneurs together, either by collaboration or just by helping, with your services or whatever, helping. If there's a service aspect to what is that you do, then we should be linking arms together and showing how to build.
I love that, because I'm going to share with you now. I remember reaching out to somebody a while ago who was doing something similar to what I was, and we'd never actually physically met, but we'd connected on a Facebook or whatever. And I reached out and said, "Oh, it'd be amazing to have a chat with you. Maybe we could collaborate on something." And the response was, "Why would I when you're my direct competition?"
Oh no!
I was like, "But I'm not at all. You're in the other side of the world from where I am. I love what you're doing, and I just thought I could reach out." But that was the instant, this is mine. I'm going to have it. Let me keep it for myself.
And it's scary because the thing is that it really does, that comes from a real scarcity mindset that there isn't enough for everybody. And the more successful people that I meet, the more I realize that there is space for everybody. And the most successful people will tell you that as well. In fact, what they do, or you'll see this in the online space quite a lot, is they will leave clues. Success leaves clues.
Yes.
So, to do that in a way that is intentional, in a way that is helpful, is only going to benefit everybody. And also there's this, Alison, isn't there? My way of doing things isn't necessarily to everybody's taste. So there is going to be a section of people who I'm not going to be able to help. However, there is going to be somebody who does a similar thing to me who, those people are going to dig, and I want to know who that person is so I can direct them there.
Yeah, and that's so right. And I'm great. Well, I'm a great believer that collaboration over competition, like you say, is so important. That I can't do everything myself, and I used to try. I used to try to be the cook, the housewife, the mother, the entrepreneur, the Pilates instructor, the masseur, the this. And, I would literally take my massage bed out with me after doing a Pilates session so I can go to the next person and do massage so that they didn't have to have somebody else.
Yeah.
So, it's like, why am I doing this? I don't, let me utilize somebody else's skills so that I do this bit and they do this bit, and then they get the best from both parts. And I think it's so important that we do that. Focus on what your expertise are.
Yes.
And nourish it to make it even more enriching for everybody else that's going to benefit from it.
And that's it. And as they say, you might be the ripest, juiciest peach in the entire world, but guess what? Not everybody likes peaches. And you've got to know some apples, and you've got to know some pears, and you've got to know some bananas, so that you can direct the people who you're not the peach for to the right piece of fruit for them,
And some kiwis. And I just, I was chatting before to Dani, and she said this most incredible thing, and it's nothing to do with fruit, and I've completely gone off track. But it was the weirdest thing about the jib. You said something about when you met your husband. Your jib. And guys, if you are listening in from America or anywhere else, and I'm from the UK and I've still never heard of it, but I just wanted to share that with you. So the fruit isn't always the cut of your jib.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll explain. So when I meet somebody, and I would not maybe directly say this to them, but I would think in my mind, do you know what? I like the cut of their jib. It means that I like the cloth that they're cut from. I like what they've got to say. I dig their vibe, So I was dead shocked that you didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know it. And I'm a northern lass as well. I'm just probably not as northern as you.
I know. I sound like I'm fresh out of Coronation Street.
Again, that's a soap in the UK that is based in the Northwest. If you're listening in from America or anywhere else in the world, you can Google Coronation Street. And make sure you're making a cup of tea as you go by it. So let's come back to these bees. They're doing the festooning. They're festooning. They're linking arms. They're going off. They're being successful, and they're creating abundance and just having that collaboration with each other and support for each other and literally lifting each other up. Did they fly together as well? They've linked and they're flying?
Well, yeah, they go out in teams and what have you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But the queen bee thing is, so when I use the term I am the queen bee, what I'm saying really is that I'm owning the fact that it is my birthright to success. You know, the queen was born the queen. She had no say in it. I was born where I was born. I had no say in it. So why isn't it my birthright for success, for abundance, for health, for wealth, for happiness, for peace? So when I'm saying I am the queen bee, what I'm saying is I'm owning all of that. I'm allowed that. And that is for me. And it isn't just for me. It's for everybody else who chooses to, because it's your birthright.
Yeah. And, you know, we choose our parents, but it doesn't mean to say that we have to be the same jib of their cut. We don't have to be the same DNA. It's only if it's nature to nurture, if it's drilled into us all the time of, like you say, you've got to get a house, you've got to get a job, you've got to get married. Well, actually, no, I'm meant for more. I'm meant for more. I want more. I want to create more for other people. And that's stepping into your complete power of taking what you've learned and your lessons in life, knowing that your past does not define you. In fact, what it's done is created something extraordinary for you to live an extraordinary life, for you to help other women start to live an extraordinary life. So I want to, talking about the extraordinary life and that queen bee movement that you have, that such an epic vision for over the next couple of years, then share that vision now so that women know what they can kind of get involved in and how it can help them to move their needle forward in their own life. Yeah,
absolutely. So on the socials at the minute, on Facebook predominantly, I have an online community. So I've got the IATTB Hive. And in there we do personal development, we challenge each other, we help each other. What I also do is I do online, I do in real life events. So I run an event called Show Up, Wise Up, Rise Up.
Wow.
And that is the strategy that I share with people to help them elevate themselves wherever they are. So it doesn't matter whether you are starting out in business or whether you're very seasoned. So I take that out into live events.
So let me ask you about this for people that are listening. So women who want to are thinking about starting their own business, or they're maybe in business but need a little bit more confidence direction, they need a bit more business skills, and you're utilizing your leadership skills to help them to go from wherever they are right now and then move forward.
So because it's a collaborative community, so it doesn't matter where you are in business. So obviously we get people coming in that are thinking about starting in business, but we also have people that are really seasoned entrepreneurs, because everybody, if you are in that space, everybody is looking to level up.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you are, working at a higher level, it might compel you to want to help other people do the same thing. Also, when you are surrounded by like minds, so you get people that are just starting out who've got a lot of fire in their belly, who are really stoked. So to be around that energy as a really seasoned entrepreneur is exciting. So we get lots of people from lots of different stages. They're at different chapters in their own story.
That is amazing. You're saying about the seasoned entrepreneur, and then you've got the excitable, enthusiastic, energetic. So the nurtured, nourished, well-rounded entrepreneur, seasoned entrepreneur, whatever you want to call them, that they can see what is their potential in the somebody that's just starting up with all their ideas and can give direction as well as you. And like you say, it's that collaboration thing on that. So you said about the show up, rise up, wise up. Have I said that the right way around?
Yeah. So you find out where you need to show up, where you are showing up, identify all of that, and then you wise up. So you've got to learn what you need to learn in order to rise up, which is your next level. And that is a never ending cycle. Amazing. So that is the strategy that we talk about all the time, that I go out and help people with in live workshops and live events as well.
Amazing. And then, so you're doing the live workshops, and where do these happen?
So they happen at present. They happen all through the UK. We're taking it on tour next year.
Wow.
So we'll be going from Scotland all the way down to Land's End, and then the year after, as we grow our global community online, the intention is that we take it over to Canada and over to the US to start with.
Oh, that's incredible. So where are your clients coming in from right now? Because if you've got it online, are they all over the world? Or
yeah, and I was really shocked how quickly that started to happen. But it just shows the thirst for this sort of movement. You know,
it's needed.
Yeah, we need this. So yeah, it started out in the UK, and we are predominantly like the UK, but we've got people coming in now from the US, from Canada, from Africa, from Trinidad, Tobago. We've got some Spanish people coming on in. So yeah, we are a lovely melting pot. It's fab, and it's really inclusive as well. So we've got members of the LGBTQ community. We're just a lovely melting pot. It's brilliant.
I love that. And do you have somebody helping you now with this vision, or is it still just you doing it all, turning the cogs, making it happen, showing up, rising up, wising up? Have you got a team supporting you to do all this?
I have now, because it started to snowball quite quickly. Yeah.
How did you find that? Because obviously women who are entrepreneurs that want to grow, but perhaps they haven't got the abundance yet of the financial support, that are thinking, gosh, I need support with different things. How has that helped you to move forward by increasing your team or creating a team?
So I was working at capacity. I couldn't do any more. And in fact, because I work so quickly, it was hard to keep all of the foundation stuff, the admin under control. And it was taking up quite a lot of bandwidth for me. It was making me worry. It was filling me with that anxiety again. What I did is I started to network in business communities where other people were maybe doing the jobs that I needed doing. So accountants, VAs, videographers. And I started to heavily network with them and explain to them what the vision for the I Am the Queen Bee movement was. And when they started to understand that, a few people came forward and went, how can we work with you? How can we help? And that what happened next was really, really wonderful. So my videographer and now colleague, Tom Stanhope from Video Track in the UK, was like, so you're planning a YouTube channel, is that right? I'm like, yeah. He was like, okay, well, we're going to work together on this. I would love to help you get that off the ground. So now we've got the Queen Bee Dani YouTube channel. And he knew at the start that there wasn't an abundance of money, but he could see the business plan. I had a strategy and a business plan, and he could see where that was going. And he wanted to be a part of it. And the same with my VA. My VA is incredible, but she knew right at the start that we needed to get things in place in order to make that relationship work. And I think that, when you're really clear and when you're really honest about where you are, you can ask for that help. And you know what? The worst that can happen is that people say no.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes when what you're doing and it's going to be really impactful and help people, it's funny how many people want to be involved. And then you get to choose, which was another wonderful thing. Like so many VAs was like, oh, Dani, we'd love to be your assistant. We can see how we can partner with you. I was like, I need someone who gets it. Yes. I need someone who gets me, and I need somebody who gets the vision. And I found that in Anna, my assistant now. And what we've done is now we've developed this into we're making money. We're a business now, which is fantastic. Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. It's having that vision, but it's having the passion. You hear so many when you speak at Tony Robbins or any of these mentors, guides, and leaders, do it from a point of passion first. And then the money will come. If you do it from a place of wanting the money first and losing your passion, it's pointless for you and it's never going to work as a business.
That's it. And the thing is, it doesn't necessarily have to be within the coaching space as well. It's however you see, it's however your heart sees you adding the most value. How are you going to help the most people? So for some people, that may be a product. It might be a physical product that's going to help someone. Whenever you sell anything, you've got to be solving a problem of some description. So whatever you're selling, the transaction is you are solving a problem. You are helping someone. So when you find what it is that helps someone, that really fires you up. I talk passionately about something and I work with passion and I live with passion, but I try more to talk about working with love. Because passion always feels quite finite. It always like you get a flare of passion, don't you? But actually, when you work with love, it's much more of a slow burner, but you're really being led with the foundation. You're really being led by the heart. So the passion is incredible, and it's great for when you're getting things started. But when you find something that you love, that is when the magic from any kind of business happens.
I love that.
I love that.
I do. I love that. It's amazing. So listen, we've got to wrap it up, because we could talk for ages and ages, and we already have. So I'm going to just kind of ask you, what do you do? Because, you know, you're doing this with love and passion and purpose. You're singing still as well. You're emceeing. You're being a speaker on stage. You're doing all of this jazz. And so how do you look after your well-being and your mindset and your health with all of these plates?
So my health has become the big thing that is important for me to work on, because I'm working at such a pace. The potential for burnout is very, very real. So what I do is I make sure I allot time for me to go and nap, because essentially I work nights as well. So I work, you know, I'm gigging of an evening. I'm probably getting home about 2:00 in the morning. So, and then starting my day at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then on into the day. So I've got to make sure that my sleep is topped up in appropriate places. So that's one way. It is so important that I hydrate myself. I know it sounds so glib. It's something as simple as drinking water.
Necessary. Do you know what? So many people are not hydrated and they get sick. So for you singing, and especially, thank goodness you're not singing in smoky environments anymore, because that would have been even worse. But, you know, you are singing, you've got to create saliva all the time, as disgusting as it sounds. You know, you've got to do that, and you've got to stay hydrated, but you'd be surprised how many people do not. So it's not a big glamorous thing. But.
And singing particularly, you've got to be hydrated from the inside out. It's not just as simple as sipping drinks whilst you sing or just before. It's about, you know, hydrating and steaming and making sure there's just as much, you know, water in your cells as possible in order for, you know, for that muscle to maintain that strength through, you know, sometimes 3 hours of singing of an evening.
Yeah, everything's got to be on a cellular level. And a mindset as well. You know, if like you said, you spoke before, I won't digress too much, but if you went into that in a state of anxiety, stress, and then not being hydrated, then you have a real potential for damage on your cells.
Yeah. That's the thing. So making sure that I've got enough sleep, making sure I'm hydrated, making sure that I've given myself some space as well. Getting outside and walking is big for me, in that I like being in nature. Nature really kind of grounds me. It allows me to meditate. So getting that offline time, getting that phone out of my hand, that's still a constant battle that I have with myself, especially now as this movement is escalating. I've got to be really conscious about, you know, put my phone away, making sure that, you know, on my plate I can see some colour. Getting back to basics like that.
Real food.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone's listening and think, well, isn't that cereal colour? Dani means like proper colour, like vegetables and fruits and those types of things.
Instead we call it freezer tapas, where you've got like oven fries or chicken nuggets, or, you know, in your plate looks really beige.
The beige buffet.
It's an easy trap to fall into, especially because I'm a busy mum as well. So sometimes having those things in, and it's making a conscious decision to, you know, to kind of stop buying those things, to make sure that what I'm putting in is going to maintain the energy levels that I need. Because, you know,
because otherwise you're not going to get, you're not going to get hydrated either. So, you know, when you're eating that kind of beige buffet, you don't feel energetically able to cope with a lot of the things that are needed for such a long space of time in the hours that you need. So, you've got to get shit done. You've got a lot to do. You've got a team supporting you. You need to get out in fresh air. I'm totally with you on that. My day doesn't feel like I've lived a day if I've not been out into I have a dog. You've got dogs. I have to take the dog out. Yeah. That's a non-negotiable. The sleep is so important. I think people so are still underestimating the power of sleep. It's when we recover, it's when we rest, it's when our whole body allows itself to regenerate ourselves, eating good food and topping up that sleep. And what else? Is there anything else that you do to keep your well-being and mental well-being, sanity, in its strongest place?
So what I do now, and I never used to do this, is that I plan the night before, or at least I have a get stuff done list the night before, so I know what I'm getting into when I open my eyes in the morning. Because it's something as simple as that allows me to sleep. When I do sleep, it allows me to kind of let stuff go, because I know it's in hand. I know that I know what's coming the next day. And also by knowing that, it allows me to handle any curveballs a little bit better as well. And it takes me out of that treading water,
yes.
Which only adds to that anxiety. Remember, I spent a long time in that anxious space by not having a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It leaves the gate open to a lot of overwhelm, especially now as things are in such hypergrowth for everything Queen Bee.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So I just love the fact that your transition into the woman you're becoming, the Queen Bee that you are, and just empowering not only your own children. And I love this because the kids are just ready for the bees to come, because we have Poppy, we have Ivy, and we have Lily. So all of those flowers are ready to really step up to being a bee with your girls as well. Your incredible girls who are also seeing mum being so resilient and just showing up, wising up and rising up for them as well as yourself, as well as other women, and as well as for your husband, and bringing something so powerful. So, Dani, how can people get hold of you? When is the next gig if it's in the UK? Where can they find you and just connect with you?
So people can find me on all of the socials. My handle right across the board is at the Queen Bee Dani. The website you can find me on is imthequeenbee.co.uk. And you can find me live on my profile, Dani Wallace.
We just Google Dani Wallace, and we can Google you on YouTube. Is YouTube the Queen Bee, or is YouTube Dani Wallace?
YouTube is the Queen Bee Dani, yeah. You can find, so on there's loads of little snippets and episodes that you can go and have a look at that really speak to those people that are in business, or those people that are wanting to begin to show up, wise up and rise up. It's been a really exciting thing creating that. I was really proud of that. It's my baby.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. If you do get a chance to go and watch Dani on YouTube, then it is really, it's just mesmerizing. It's like the Jungle Book, where the snake his eyes are going round in circles. It's like that. I was just watching, I was like, I'll just watch a little bit of it. And then I was just, okay, I just got to watch it all. And then I've got to watch the next one. Super inspirational. Dani, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing this time with us today. I know how important your time is to you as well, so it means the world for me to have you on here, and I hope everybody who's listening just enjoys Dani's energy and purpose and love for what she's doing. So, Dani, do you have anything else to say?
Other than thank you so much for having me. Is what you're doing here is incredible, and it's so important. We talk about empowerment. What you're doing with this podcast, with everything you're doing and living the vibrant life, is just so inspirational for me as well. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Guys, please drop into all of Dani's handles and get in contact. And if you're in the UK, get to one of the tours that she's doing next year. And if you're in the rest of the world, she's coming your way. So what's that? She's going to be flying with those bee wings. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate your time, energy. And if you loved this episode as much as we did, please be sure to go to iTunes, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, leave a comment, pass it on to a friend, click it onto Instagram, and let us know that you're there listening and sharing this with the world. It's so needed. Thanks, guys. So I want to say a huge thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I really am so grateful for all of you. We are so grateful for all of you that are tuning in, and that if you feel that you have got value from this podcast, if you feel that there's so much more that you want to hear, then please do go over to iTunes, leave a review, and share this episode with some of your best friends or people you know would also really, really get value from it. We only grow through you, and we're only here because of you. We want you to know that each and every woman out there, we are supporting you, we have your back, and we really want to bring you as much value as possible. So from all of us here at Vibrant Balanced Health, we want to say thank you so much for listening to us today. Your honesty is so important, and we really just want to help more and more women live their more vibrant life and create impact. And that only happens with your support and with your connection to share this message with thousands of women. So thank you so much for stopping in. And if you feel called to, please do pop on over, leave a review, say hi, leave your comments, let us know what you'd like to hear more of, and we will be sure to bring you even more value over and over again.